This podcast is brought to you by Taylor's Ultimate Gym Protein.
Do you feel as though you aren't getting a good enough workout at the gym? Is it because you aren't consuming the right type of protein during your workout? Stupid question, of course you are. Taylor's special branded protein gives you the raw materials to repair and grow your muscles after your workout. There's literally nothing else in it. It's just straight protein. None of that hippy-dippy flavoured crap that sacrifices a damn good workout for pathetic strawberry. Our slogan is that we sacrifice absolutely everything necessary to ensure that you feel healed.
Listeners' discretion is advised, as there are topics of decapitation and suicide. The breeze is calm and cold, a good 12 degrees at the time. The bridge could be seen anywhere, but it was the smaller streets surrounded by the buildings that were overlooked. This year's phenomenon, broadcasted directly to your eyes or via the 1080p screen in every person's household, nobody looking away from the one thing that they could not miss. The 9 o'clock fireworks had already gone off, and so it was the people who wanted to live their lives that night, have a party, go clubbing, or enjoy the show with their friends and family. They witnessed the true display of colour in the night sky. Such beautiful display was short-lived, as were 7 people brutally murdered that night. Celebration turned to mourning. This is not only a story about the tragic mass murder on the night of New Year's, but the death of the man behind it, the New Year's phenomenon.
Decapitation, the action of cutting off the head of a person or animal.
Well, that's bloody well good to know. Welcome back to Behind the Knife, your monthly podcast detailing the cruel world of true crime, the people in charge and their motives behind the mask. The hidden murders between the backstreets of cities that you don't see are shown in full light in this podcast. Exposed to your ears only are the full, in-depth explanations of the detective process surrounding some of the most well-renowned incidents of the 21st century. I'm your host and core detective on the monthly cases we discuss here on Behind the Knife, Liam Dutton. I'm here to give you a mental tour on an older case in 2010. We call it the Sydney New Year's Incident, and it's brought to you in one whole episode from our sponsors. More on those later, but for now, enjoy the strange murders of New Year's 2010.
Yes, I need the police. I found a corpse on the side of the street.
Hello.
I found a headless body.
There's blood
It
everywhere.
appears to be decapitated.
The head is in the lap of the body.
Please help. There's groups surrounding it.
Please figure out who did this.
Sydney, the city known for hosting its annual fireworks display, hosted a far more sinister spectacle on New Year's. The death of 7 individuals. The 7 people died in the exact same way, according to the coroners. It was what seemed most obvious. They all died of decapitation. They'd figured out some very important details, how clean most of the cuts were, and how the bodies were dealt with on the streets. All of them were placed leaning against some sort of wall, with their heads placed in their laps and their hands holding onto them. Each head had its eyes closed, but more importantly, had a singular cigarette shoved inside of its mouth. Not burnt, not bent, shoved precisely along the tongues of the 7 victims. We have identified the victims in order of their death. Lathira Hathaway-Singer, Michaela Evans, Gareth Paisley, Tyler Dutton, Taylor Gray, John Smith, and Alex Hoff. It seems there was no targeted type of victim, including gender or religion. All we know is a rough charted course of the killings throughout the Sydney streets Trinity Avenue and Cambridge Street. Police had found camera footage of Gareth Paisley, a worker from the restaurant and the 3rd victim, from the side of the building that described his futile attempt of escape from the killer. The video footage is not necessary, as we can fully describe what's happening in the event. Listeners are advised this part can be difficult to listen to.
Hello? Can I help you? No, you would have none of...
Mamma mia, best Giovanni here is gone. It all felt so sudden. Giovanni was working the late shift that night, and we had to put him alone because I trusted him enough to close up the shop by himself. I was going to give him a Giovanni today. We've already lost 20 of our other Giovannis in the past month. But Giovanni, it was my Giovanni.
At this stage in the investigation, we hadn't found any other hard evidence of how the victims were captured, or the killer's identity. What we can gather on the surface from the order of the killings is that the murderer had most likely never done it before. We can see this by the use of a very sharp blade, almost as if they wanted it to be over and done with it as fast as possible. Except for the first two. The first two bodies, Lathira and Michaela, had been killed in a more unique way compared to the others. The cuts on the necks are jagged, meaning the killer in question originally had a hard time cutting them. This backs up the theory of the killer having no killing history, meaning that we couldn't look at any of the documented criminals in police files. It all felt ritualistic in some sense. Why would the killer need to decapitate them? Not only that, but the cigarettes confused the team as well. But as it was proved, were one of the most important aspects of the case. I had wondered if the killer was against smokers in any chance, but we had tested all the lungs of the victims and found that only Alex Hoff, the seventh victim, had a smoking history. We looked at the brand of the cigarette, which was a huge step in our investigation. Treasurer Luxury Black Cigarettes, one of the most expensive cigarettes in the world and considered to have a luxury taste to its smoker. It was brilliant. Could this be a way of the killer communicating to the bodies after they were killed? Did they feel almost sorry for them, in a way that a luxury, presumably of his, would fix or make up what he had done?
Hello? I need to speak with the police.
Hello, this is police.
My friend's just been killed.
Chapter 2. It thickens. This was one of the most influential calls for the case that we had received for the New Year's incident. At this point, it's exactly 8:03 AM. We knew that Paisley Poggett, 15 at the time, had just gotten access to her phone after charging it. Her friend had been identified as Taylor Gray, the fifth victim. We took Paisley in for questioning about the incident at our station.
She was my best friend. She had fallen behind me just slightly to check her phone. I heard nothing but a blade hitting her.
We understand this is very hard for you, but could you give us a description of the murderer?
He was about the same height as me, a bit over 5'8", and short brown hair. He was also wearing all black from what I can remember before I ran away.
Is there anything else at all that you can remember?
When I got further away, I knew I was safe from him because he hadn't gone after me. He was leaning next to her body and putting it up against the fence. He was crying.
This evidence was very important as it backed up our theory on feeling sorry for his victims. The interview continues.
He started rolling around on the street like he was fighting himself, or his mind was clouded in a way. He was hitting his head. It was really disturbing, but I thought I would record it.
No, I can't keep doing this. Please stop. I'll do anything.
This recording also revealed the murder weapon he used, some sort of katana that had the sharpness to chop the head straight off the victim. The bodies had been cleared up and taken away from the public eyes by around the time of this interview. But that got me thinking. The public, this killer, deliberately pulled Gareth Paisley from behind the restaurant onto the street, and how he propped Taylor Gray up on the fence. Could this mean that the killer was somewhat showcasing the bodies to the eyes of the public? No, he felt sorry for each of his victims. So what's the message he's trying to tell us? I decided it was time to lay out all the evidence we had gathered. Over 5'8", brown-haired man had decapitated 7 people on New Year's. You get the point. Tune in for the outcome after this short advert.
Giovanni, why is there pineapple on my pizza? I thought you wanted the pineapple. No, mamma mia, Giovanni. Have you had enough of Giovanni serving pineapple on your pizza?
Yes.
Come to Giovanni today and get your non-pineapple Giovanni pizza. Pizza, Giovanni.
Chapter 3. The 3 suspects. Matt Tennant, David Capaldi, and Christopher Smith. These were the 3 suspects of this case we had managed to find over the course of several days after New Year's. The case went dry. There was nothing else that we could do to uncover any more evidence by ourselves. So, we asked the public. They already knew about everything anyway. The thought process was that we could uncover the actual truth, or just any more leads surrounding the case. We told them the basic description of the killer. Over the course of 3 days, we had 3 possibilities of who the killer could be from the following calls. On the 5th of January, we received this call.
I remember my friend leaving us with a katana he showed everyone. He actually had a run-in with the police because of it, but they let him off because even they were drunk that night. He was wearing pretty dark clothes. I genuinely haven't seen him since, and he hasn't answered his mobile.
Could I have the name of your friend?
Matt Tennant.
Unsuccessful. As it turns out, Matt Tennant had stayed over at another friend's house. His katana was fake as well, according to a social media post in 2009. On the 6th of January, we received a more intriguing call about another possible suspect.
David had a katana he bought from a sketchy store somewhere downtown. I don't know how sharp it was, but it was covered in blood. He was covered in blood. I only know this because I was trying to find him later, but saw him drenched in blood in an alleyway near those victims.
This was interesting. The team took it upon themselves to find David Capaldi's house, and to our disappointment, found out that he was not the killer. He had been hospitalized from an accident while trying to use his katana. A bit odd it was in an alleyway, all by himself, but we didn't think it was worth looking into. The team and I was struggling. 7th of January, and nothing else important. After nearly losing all momentum in the case, I suddenly thought, why New Year's? I understood that we'd previously asked this question, but I meant, what was so special about New Year's to kill them? This was about to be answered in the following call.
Hello? I need the police. I'd like to report something on the Sydney murders.
Do you have any information on the Sydney case?
Yes, I believe it was my own son.
I was speaking to Eileen Smith, and at this point in the conversation, I wasn't very excited. I didn't want any more fake phone calls or false leads, but it was too early on to tell, so I kept listening.
Young Chris was my only boy. He always had problems with his head. He's 22 now, in his own apartment, but constantly needs me to come over and calm him down.
Calm him down from what?
He's schizophrenic. I'm the only one he can trust to keep his secret, but I need to tell you, Chris was a schizophrenic since his grandfather died. Chris hated him because he hated him. Always smoking around him, never letting him eat. That was when I was away for 2 years in Italy. When he died last year, that's about the time he developed the voices, he called them.
How did he die exactly?
Well, it was New Year's night and he had died from gang violence. Decapitation.
I stopped. Everyone stopped. We knew what we had just found. It was the evidence to the entire case. Now all that was left to do was to find him. Find Christopher Smith. Chapter 4. All's Well That Ends. The manhunt went on for 3 days. We found him in a remote and abandoned house off of Lithgow. We had the entire police team on the case, helicopters and all. We took him in for questioning, but we had no idea what the outcome could have been until it happened.
So it was you, wasn't it? The New Year's murderer.
Yes, it was me. Don't use murderer, though. It's a bit harsh.
What would you like me to use, then? Slaughterer?
It wasn't me!
How do you mean?
The voices. They told me to.
What voices did you hear, Chris?
It was him! My granddad. He wants to make me feel as he did. Dead.
He wanted you to feel sorry for hating him after what he had done.
How did you... Yes.
We got him. We knew exactly what type of a person he was. We knew why the cigarettes had been shoved inside the mouths of the victims. It was because of his grandfather's addiction. But from this point onwards, he started acting extremely strange. We have decided not to show this recording as we find it disturbing. Except for this. Listeners are warned.
I can't hear you!
Has he come back?
I can't hear!
You heard it right. He had killed himself. The police were able to complete their reports, however, and it's only now, a month after the case, that we realized that Christopher was on our side. He was scared is all. Scared of what else he could do to people, and so that's why he fled to Lithgow. The case can be perfectly wrapped up with this voice message.
The night before New Year's.
Hey, Mum. I don't really feel alright at the moment. I can't hear anything. I can't hear anyone anymore. I'm thinking of living somewhere new. In Alaska. It's the last frontier. Up there, you can be anything you want. Thank you for always being there for me.
Tune in next week for our special episode on cannibalism. Thank you and stay safe.